You're saying that in Islam,
The poor don't have
the
to give
poor
zakat.
Muslims
They don't give
don't
zakat.
only have to keep 4 pillars, not 5.
They don't do Hajj either. If they don't have the money to do Hajj, they don't do Hajj.
Great. Okay. So Islam can be reduced to 3 pillars.
Yes.
Yes.
2.5%
For a Christian, it can be,
10,000.
for a Christian, it can be 1 penny, and that's the charity done for the.
And if they're dirt poor, that's totally fine. How can a poor person give 2.5%? So you say Muslims never invaded other people's lands?
Let me finish and you're gonna get the idea.
Never.
Let me get the
Your religion reduces Allah to a fetishist. Someone who obsesses about the form and the ritual. That is a fetishist. That is the definition of a fetishist. Christians are called to pray continuously, to worship God continuously. In Islam, you pray 5 times a day, and there are times in the day when you're not even permitted to pray.
It's subjective. Well, it depends.
It's subjective. There you go.
Depending on the methodology you follow.
In Islam,
But we Islamically.
between the morning
same-
prayer and the afternoon prayer, you're prohibited from praying.
Yeah, when the sun is directly above your head.
Nice to meet you, bro. God bless. So here's the thing: if you're,
But the same way in
Go on.
Islam, if you do anything for the sake of God, that is also counted as worship.
you're said if you remember God.
No.
You're-
So, for example, eating in
Yeah.
the name of God,
Yeah.
saying, in the name of God,
Yeah.
I eat this meal,
Yeah.
and this is to provide me with sustenance so I can pray and whatnot. This is also an act of worship. That's what we believe.
Right. So theologically, there's a profound difference between Islam and Christianity in worship.
Where's the difference?
In Islam, worship is the remembrance of God.
As well as physical worship.
That which is the remembrance of God. All that you're doing is remembering God.
Yes.
Right. That is radically different from what Christians see as worship. Worship is literally to offer sacrifice.
We offer sacrifice as well.
Muslims don't offer any sacrifice.
And we sacrifice things that we like to do to pray. it's
So when you
technically
when you slit the throat of that animal,
Yep.
what is that sacrifice doing?
Well, it's the very fact that God instructed Abraham to do it,
Yep.
and we are doing it for the sake of God,
So it's remembrance.
but it's also a sacrifice.
So it's not a sacrifice.
We do sacrifice our time because sometimes we have to wake up early in the morning.
Yeah.
Even when it's cold and going and making ablution and performing the prayer, that's a sacrifice for us because it's not easy to get that early.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we Christians,
Sacrificing our time.
those of us that are very disciplined wake up at 3 in the morning to pray, and then 6 at morning and pray. Yeah, it's called the office of the hours. I am not that good. I am not that good. But our monks, they will pray every 3 hours throughout the entire day. Every 3 hours they pray. So I agree with you. That is well, let me finish. No, one finish. Because I understood what you said. I understood what you said. I understood what you said. Right? But none of this is sacrificing your religion. You don't have show me in the Quran.
Sacrificing our desires.
One second. The Quran does not have a concept that you are sacrificing in worship. The Quran has a concept that you are remembering God in worship. You sacrifice the animal Eid because Allah told you to do so. So it's about remembrance of His commands and obedience.
Sacrificing
Right.
our desires, we are worshipping God by doing that.
But you
That
don't.
is an act of worship.
But it's not the act of worship in Islam strictly is the act of remembrance.
Okay, so how
Peace
is-
be with you,
how
brother.
incorrect?
Sister.
So
I'm going to have to correct you there. That's not correct. I think you've got
Okay.
a misunderstanding.
Is there
it's just definitions.
is there
If
a
you
concept
explain-
of priesthood in Islam?
Of what?
A priesthood.
What's that?
Well, we
priesthood-
have imams and
They're not priests.
Well, they're not priests. Yeah.
They're not priests. So you have no.
By definition, they're not priests.
They're
They
not
have
by
community.
definition. They're not priests, and by definition, therefore, they can't sacrifice.
Why is that?
Priests,
why is
the very because, and this is the point. This is why we know that Islam isn't in the line of Moses. It isn't in the line of David or any of the Old Testament
What about
prophets.
Abraham?
No, nor Abraham as well, because
Did Abraham sacrifice?
he sacrificed an animal.
That's sacrifice.
Yes.
So when we sacrifice, what do we do?
But you're doing it out of remembrance of Allah's command.
So when you sacrifice, why is it not remembrance?
Right. So the reason why it's sacrifice is because for us the act of worship is the wholeness of the being. The fullness of the being. It's not a particular act. In Islam,
How is that?
shall we move closer just to get out of the rain? So, in Islam, the act of worship is a particular act. It's the salat, it's the wudu, it's the animal that you give at Eid, it's your zakat. So worship for you are particular ritualistic forms, they're acts.
But in definition, they are also sacrifices.
I agree at a human
Sacrificing
level.
your money, your
Yeah.
time, your hunger,
Yeah,
going to high pilgrimage, desire everything.
Every day
Yeah.
is a sacrifice for us.
Yeah.
We've got to again to certain things. We've got to follow.
I want him to explain.
That is classed as a daily sacrifice. Do you agree?
Yeah, I want him to explain what his form of sacrifice is.
I agree that it is, all of these things that you're talking about are
They are
sacrifices.
all acts of worship and we get rewarded
Right.
for that.
So show me in the Quran where you are commanded to sacrifice.
Well, it's a struggle against your desires.
Jihad, okay, I get struggle.
Yeah.
But where does it tell you that sacrifice is the act of worship?
Well,
It doesn't teach you that in the Quran.
well,
It doesn't.
talks about the struggle
It teaches.
against yourself
It teaches you
and
to.
that you'll get rewarded for it in the end.
It teaches you to follow Allah's commands, and I agree that at human level, following Allah's commands can be described objectively as a sacrifice. I'm not.
so we agree
Don't.
it's a sacrifice.
No, not to God. Let me explain.
So it's a sacrifice.
No,
to you.
you're not following. You're not following the chain of the conversation. I
think
agree.
semantics.
But there is a fundamental difference because you are told that the act of worship is the remembrance of Allah's commands.
Yes.
Right, and I agree that at a human level, Allah commands you to do things
We
that can be
sacrifice to
described.
remember.
Right, no, you sacrifice because you remember.
No, we sacrifice to
It's
remember.
more
But a
submission
priest,
than remembrance.
a priest of
It's more
the.
submission than remembrance. Submission is the word.
Sorry, that's gonna struggle. Okay. So a priest offers a sacrifice.
In what way?
Right, so a great way. A sacrifice is of your life. It has to be of your life.
Okay.
It has to be of life.
Does he kill himself?
Exactly, great question. So in scripture we're called to die to ourselves.
Okay.
In the Christian faith we're literally called to die to ourselves.
So are they in a vegetative state? Or are they
In baptism,
practicing?
in baptism, we die to our old self and we put on Christ.
Okay.
So we put to death the inner man is the Christian way of describing, so that we can offer our souls and bodies to be a living sacrifice
just
to the
as you
Lord.
offer your body and your soul, we also offer our body and our soul and our desires for the same reason. You're just saying, well, because one's a priest, he can sacrifice, and because you're not a priest, you can't sacrifice.
How could someone who is not a priest sacrifice?
The word sacrifice isn't limited to priests.
What is a priest?
Well, you tell me.
Someone who offers a sacrifice. So are you a priest?
I'm saying the definition of a sacrifice.
a priest to offer sacrifice.
Sacrifice by definition is not limited to priests.
Is that
Is that the case in your religion?
we believe that. Oh, flipping heck! Hold on. Let me stand with my back to the rain.
With us, it's not limited to certain people, a certain demographic. It's everyone.
So this is the thing that I would say to you guys that you need to go away and study Islam a little bit more. You do because the act of worship in Islam is particular to the obedience of the Sharia.
Right.
It's particular to the rituals. No, these sacrifice to your desires is what permits you to perform the salat. When you deny yourself sleep, it's what permits you to perform the
Let me
salat.
ask you a
But the
question.
salat is the act of
Let
worship.
me ask you a question.
I'm not trying to distort your religion. I'm trying to be fair to your religion. I'm trying to explain to you how your religion is different from
Let me
mine.
ask you
I
a
think you have a different understanding of my religion than I do.
Yeah, I think I do.
When we sacrifice our body
Yeah,
by not getting sleep to pray,
which is what we do.
how is that different to a priest who sacrifices his body for Christ?
Right. So the difference is that the Christian gives everything in his life
We
as
do
an
the
act of worship to God.
same.
You are actually told in Islam not to pray at certain times.
Yeah, but that's
Is that true?
in some.
From morning to the noon prayer, you're forbidden to pray. Is that not correct? Thank you.
No, it's in some methodologies, Hanafi fiqh, that they don't.
And
pray at
that's
noon.
that's Sunni Islam.
Yeah.
So, and I'm guessing you guys are Sunni.
But
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing saying you're not allowed to have intercourse when you're fasting, where intercourse is a form of, well, it's an ibadah. It's when you do it in God's name, it's a form of worship as well. So you can't say because when you're fasting you can't have intercourse, therefore you're being restricted of worship.
So,
Would you agree?
no, I agree if you're offering your soul and body to be a living sacrifice to the Lord. So what you're telling me is that you want what we've got in our scriptures. Our scriptures command us to offer our souls and bodies to be
We're
a
not
living
jealous of the
sacrifice to the
Bible.
Lord. So now show me, please.
Yes.
Can you show me in the Quran where you're commanded to offer your souls and bodies to be a living sacrifice to the Lord?
Okay, so before we get into that, I just want to make one clarification. If God tells you, hypothetically,
Yeah.
to not pray in certain hours,
Yeah.
and you don't pray in those certain hours,
Yeah.
that is the sacrifice that you're doing.
I don't believe a God would ever tell you not to pray.
Well,
Think
so
about
God
it.
says don't
What
pray
is?
when you're unclean.
Why did God create us? He created us to glorify Him, correct?
Yes, but
Right.
God gives rules and regulations as to how to worship Him.
So
The same way I can't make an idol of God and worship
listen
Him.
to what you just said. God gives rules on how we are to worship Him.
Yes, of course.
So He's giving you a rule not to pray to Him.
No.
Yes.
Look,
Who
listen.
commands you not to pray from morning till noon?
This is the difference between Islam and Christianity, where you guys you pray however you desire. Some people may pray like this, some people may get down on their face. We have a strict way of how to pray,
Yep.
and that was revealed by God.
Which is not like Jesus prayed, by the way. You know that Jesus looked up to heaven when He prayed,
But he also put his face on the ground.
just like Christians do. But Christians, when
you
we
put your
pray,
face to the ground?
yes, we do. I do. I do. I do. Yes. 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 He prostrates. Are you a Christian? Do you prostrate? Are you a Christian? Do you prostrate? Yeah. There you go.
How often
4
do you prostrate?
Christians.
How often do I pray?
Yeah.
Not 5 times a day.
How
I pray
often?
unceasingly.
How
and whatever,
many times?
whenever I
How many times do you pray?
7 times a day.
How many times do you
I
pray?
try to pray 7 times a day.
How many times do you pray?
I pray whenever it takes me.
No. I try to pray 7 times a day, but I'm just not good enough to get up at 3 in the morning. Pray all the time. It's a continuous conversation with God.
There's no regulation. One person can pray once every 10 days.
And then
once
because
every 10
no. A Christian is encouraged to pray continuously. We're encouraged as Christians to have a continuous dialogue with the Lord.
Okay?
Yeah?
Muslims can do that as well.
No, Muslims cannot do that with the Lord. In Islam, you are forbidden to pray from morning till noon.
Is making dua a form of worship?
He's making dua. Tell us what dua is. That's offering an intention, isn't it?
Making a dua is just saying a prayer.
Right.
It's just saying a prayer.
Can you do that between noon and
Yes,
morning?
yes. You can't. You can only not pray your dhuhr prayer
Yeah.
during that time.
So you're saying me that those Muslims.
in Hanafi fiqh.
So in Hanafi fiqh,
Yes.
so which one gets it from Muhammad? The Hanafis or the others?
It's a lot. I'm not gonna say I'm not educated in this
But
topic
just
enough.
think about what you've just
But-
said.
No. Listen.
Think about the problem of what you've just said. You believe that Islam comes from Muhammad, and yet in one school of Islam it says that you can pray from morning. You can't pray from morning till noon. Hanafi fiqh. But then in the others they say that you can. Now how can both of
Hanafi is
these?
the only-
How
Hanafi
can?
is the only
How?
methodology
So
that I
you're
know.
saying that
It could
Hanafis are
be-
wrong?
No. It could be that all 4 of the Hanafi is the only one that I know that say this.
So the point
Regardless,
is,
I'm not
you've
gonna
got-
go into fiqh because I'm
But,
not
but the
educated.
point is, you've
However,
got
I
a
do want-
school of Islam
No,
that's
listen.
saying don't pray,
you
and
said-
others that say
No,
do,
no, you
and they're
missing the
both
point.
claiming to represent Muhammad's teaching.
The same way.
That's a problem.
The same way God says you cannot pray directly after you've had intercourse unless
Yeah.
you bathe yourself. You would say that's restricting worship. We would say God gives guidelines as to when and how to pray.
Yep.
And we follow them. I was going on to say dua, making a dua
Yep.
is an invocation. And
Yeah.
It's a prayer.
Yeah.
And you are encouraged to do that throughout the whole day.
Yeah.
So just as you Christians supposedly pray the whole
so
day.
say you've had intercourse with your wife. Yeah, it's all legit.
Yeah.
You've had intercourse with your wife. Can you make dua from the moment
Yes, you
you
can.
wait? Let me finish. Can you make dua between
Yes.
the, the sex and the ablution?
Yes.
Right. So ablution is not necessary to dua, is it?
What do you mean?
So ablution is not necessary to
I'm
prayer.
just saying in the direct prayer where
So is
the
no
physical salah-
dua is a prayer.
no, it's a form of worship.
So it's dua. So
Prayer-
dua is not
no,
prayer.
No, it's you're missing.
No, he's
the-
confusing. He's been
No,
confused.
A dua is an invocation.
Is it a prayer?
Well, there's two prayers. One is a prayer that you say to God, and the other is the actual prayer.
So is dua a prayer? Yes or no?
He's trying to say in James,
I'm asking you, is dua a prayer?
vocabulary is different.
Yes, prayer.
Is it a prayer?
It's a difference in
Asking God for
definition.
something. That's
So
what
it is
it's asking.
so it is a prayer.
No, it's not.
What
So
the
it isn't a prayer.
Prayer
have
is
two
an
definitions.
actual form. It's an act.
So
We have
so hold on. So apparently, according to these guys, if you ask God for something, that isn't a prayer. That's news to me. Anyone?
It's
Do you know?
semantics,
Do you
Bob.
know what?
this
Do you
is
know what
semantics.
prayer means?
You know this is semantics.
Shall I help you?
You know this is.
Religion, prayer,
Shall I?
semantics.
But I'm pointing out to you that you've got problems in your concept of prayer.
You know what salah and dua?
So let a
Salah,
prayer.
yeah.
A prayer means supplication. That's what prayer means in English.
Supplication means.
Means supplication. Means to make a request.
Yes.
That's all it means. So if you ask God for something, you've made a prayer.
In English is very limited.
So dua shouldn't be translated as prayer.
Technically,
So what
it's
should it-
also a supplication. Yes.
So then prayer is the right translation.
But the salah is also referred to as the prayer.
So you've got
It's a worship, it's a form of
you've got brother. Let's not talk over one another, because then the whole conversation breaks down. I'm happy to let you in, but if we just start talking over one another, then all that happens is I raise my voice. Yeah.
about raising voices.
So let's allow one another to speak, and you keep interrupting. So allow me to speak. So the reality is, you have said, not me. I didn't put these words in your mouth. That dua is to supplicate Allah. That is the very definition of what prayer is. Now, that means if you can pray
Let's use the
without doing ablution.
false equivalency.
No, it isn't a false
Bob, you know it's a
equivalence.
false
If you can do prayer without ablution, then that means ablution is
Use dua.
unnecessary to prayer.
Use dua and salah. Use dua and salah.
So-
It's
so-
false equivalency.
Christ said this. He said that you wash the outside, but you don't wash the inside of the bowl. There are people that obsess about the ritual, but they don't think about the intention of what it is to pray, of what it is to worship. And that's why Christians offer all of their actions to God. All of them. Having a bath, going to the loo. These are things that
Same
God
as the
gave
Muslims,
us.
Same as the Muslims.
Yeah?
Same as the Muslims.
But so,
Zakah and everything, even in our finances.
okay.
In our walking, in our talking,
Yeah.
manners, mannerisms,
Yeah.
smiles. Yeah, it's the same.
So now show me this in the Quran. This idea that you're offering your life to Allah as an act of worship.
I'm not a scholar like yourself, Bob. I've seen
But
your videos.
no, you can look at the
Well,
hadith.
come on,
and
guys.
say-
You can use Google. You've got your phones.
May I ask you a question, please?
Yeah, of course.
All right. So you have been talking to this gentleman, and you have compared dua to salah, okay? And you said that they are the same. Okay. You said-
No.
You said they're the
No,
same.
I said
But they are
that
not.
dua is equivalent to prayer. That's what I said. Don't put words in my mouth.
Okay, you said that it's equivalent to prayer.
So what's the definition of dua?
Dua is supplication, like you said.
Right, that
But
is the
prayer-
definition
but
of
salah-
prayer, so
but
that's the
salah-
accurate translation
No,
of the word.
It's not. Maybe it's a synonym to it, but doesn't make it the same.
It is the same.
Okay, no, it's not.
Well,
Salah,
people can make
let's
their
say
own mind
dua-
up.
Let's say dua is that, okay?
false equivalence.
But salah
It's
is
not a false equivalence. You
Salah
don't
is
understand linguistics.
But salah is
Yours,
not.
yours.
No. I've actually used the proper principle of linguistic translation, and because you are not familiar with linguistic
speak Arabic?
translation,
May I ask you-
Okay.
I used what you said dua
May I ask
meant.
you a question?
Okay, so
You,
speak
are you,
Arabic.
do most Muslims?
Let's
No.
I
use
speak
dua and
Arabic.
salah.
أنا أتكلم عربي. تقدر تتكلم
And
عربي؟
what does dua mean?
الدعاء إنك تدعي إلى الله. Understand? You understand?
Right, so you're asking Allah for something.
الدعاء أنت تدعي. أنا نقدر ندعي لشيء.
And is that
أدعوك لحفلة.
Okay,
So the word can be translated to many things. دعوة
And what
is
is
an
dua?
invitation.
What is dua?
You can
what is dua?
Dua is asking for something. Supplication.
There you go, supplication.
But it's not salah.
And that is what prayer is.
Salah is not
In English.
Salah when you pray,
So what
when
is
you pray
salah?
like this, okay?
What is salah?
Okay. Salah is a form of worship where you read the Quran in a certain way, and
Yep.
the Fatiha first, and the
Yep.
other part of verse of the Quran.
Yep.
So it's an act. It
Yes.
has principles. It has steps.
Yes.
So
I
it's not-
agree.
It's not. It's not
Unlike the
supplication.
Christian
'Cause
form of
I
worship.
can supplicate and ask God.
And
please
what
give
did
me
I
a
say?
million powers.
Remember earlier in the
I can't do that.
conversation, earlier in the conversation, I said to you that worshipping in Islam was a particular act. I said that. It's on camera, bro.
I've also said
You
it's on
didn't
camera.
pay attention, because I started my critique by saying that in Islam the act of worship is a particular action, and you used the example of dua to get around that criticism.
Oh, listen.
And now that we have established that dua is an act of prayer, now you're trying to go back on yourself on what you said earlier.
Acts of worship is not limited to salah.
Thank
You
you.
realize this?
Right.
You
So
understand this?
does dua contain prayer? sorry.
خلينا نفس
Let me
الشيء.
do this another way. Sorry. Does salat contain prayer?
Does salah contain prayer?
Yes.
This is the issue with the English language. You're attributing one definition to one thing and
Yeah.
another definition to another thing.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
No. Let him finish his point, and then I'll reply, and then you
I
can
don't.
ask a question.
You probably weren't listening when I said even the basic mannerisms.
Yeah.
Entering the house with your right foot.
Yeah.
Eating with your right hand.
Yeah.
These are all forms of worship.
Yeah.
Dua,
are they-
dua is also a form of worship.
That is to ask, to pray.
Yes. To be good. To be
According to
Yeah.
Islamic principles.
Okay.
To smile is an act
Yeah.
of worship.
So in terms of this offering, because this is one of my criticisms of Islam. When you look at the Old Testament, they had a temple, they had a priesthood, and they had the sacrifice. You look at the time of Christ, there was the temple, the priesthood, and the sacrifice. You look at the New Covenant, we've got the temple, the priesthood, and the sacrifice. But in Islam, there is no temple, there is no
But
priesthood.
there is more sacrifice.
No, not really.
More.
How can you offer more than your entire self?
Alright, okay.
Hold on one second. How can you?
Okay, do you offer more than your self?
I said you could ask a question, and I'm going to let you. But to be clear, I'm going to let you ask a question. Calm down, bro. Calm down.
Okay.
So
No,
calm
no,
down, bro.
the-
So in
okay,
Christianity,
finish and then I'll speak.
no, he's going to ask a question. In Christianity, we offer our entire souls and bodies as a living sacrifice unto the Lord. We pour ourselves out as an oblation. We die to the old self and we put on Christ as an act of sacrifice to God. Yeah? That is what we do. Because we are priests.
Okay.
Now, you wanted to ask a question.
You ask your
Yes.
question.
Okay. Back to the prayer and dua, the salah and dua.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just gave this gentleman this example.
Yeah.
If my name is Muhammad
Yep.
and his name is Muhammad,
Yep.
does that mean we're the same?
No.
See, because he has.
I mean, I don't know why you're laughing. I'm agreeing with the logic.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're just laughing at
Okay,
yourself.
when you agree with this logic, why don't you agree that salah and dua are different? Maybe linguistically they can be
can
unified
both-
in one word in English.
Shut.
But that
Okay,
doesn't make
so
them
allow
the
me to
same.
reply to this. No, if you had actually paid attention to what allow me to finish.
Go on.
Because when you interrupt, all I have to do is raise my voice and then the whole conversation breaks down. A conversation works that you speak, I listen, I speak, you listen. And you did not listen because you were too busy interrupting.
Go for it.
Are you listening now?
I am listening.
At no point did I say that dua and salat are the same. I said that dua and prayer are the same. That is what I said, and that is what the camera will show.
May I ask you a
You were not paying attention.
Okay, maybe
Now
you're
let
right.
me explain why. No, I
Okay,
haven't
go
finished.
on.
Because I said at the very beginning of this conversation, because you weren't here,
Okay.
to this brother,
Uh-huh.
that the act of worship is a particular action in Islam. And he tried to argue, no, the act of worship is everything that you do. And he used the example of dua.
Okay.
And I said that dua is the equivalent to prayer. Okay? So that's my position. That's what I said. Now, how would you like to reply?
So you're saying, as if I got you right, if I understood you right, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Yep.
you're saying that salah and dua are not the same.
I am saying that salat is a particular form of dua.
It's a particular
Form of dua.
This is where we disagree.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, I believe, and any Muslim, I believe, agrees that salah is an actual act in itself
Yes.
that has steps.
Yes?
Okay, but dua isn't. You
Yep.
can be anywhere and say, Ya Allah, grant me this, grant me this.
Yep.
So you don't need ablution for that or
Yep.
anything.
Yep.
But to carry out the act of salah,
Yep.
you need to do the ablution.
Yep.
So I heard you earlier. I came in while you were talking about the ablution part. So
Yep.
you're saying that if they are the same and it's another form of prayer, you don't need to do ablution for salah. Did you say that or
I
not?
am
Correct
saying
me if I'm wrong.
I'm saying that clearly to supplicate Allah you don't need to do ablution.
Supplicate, do dua. This is what you
To
mean.
supplicate.
To do dua.
Yeah, you don't need to do ablution.
agree with you.
Great.
But salah you need
So
ablution.
here's Christ's words to you.
So can I just
Here-
add to that?
one
Would you-
second.
would you
Here's, no,
retract
let me
the fact
reply
that-
to him. Let me reply to him. Here's Christ's words to you. That you think that you will be heard by your many vain repetitions. That you think that God is pleased by the outward expression of your prayers. God is not pleased with any of these things. None of these things are important to him. What is important to him is a humble and contrite heart.
إنما الأعمال بالنيات.
Is a
Same as
sacrifice
Islam,
of the inner self.
Same.
actions are not necessary to please God. Are we agreed?
I think you are referring to salat. So it's
I'm now talking about salat. We've moved on from dua. We're now talking about salat.
According
Are
to
we
Christianity.
agreed? Are we agreed?
according to your belief of Christianity.
Are we agreed that the outward performance of actions is not necessary to please God?
If you're referring to salah,
Yes, in salat.
okay.
I'm speaking specifically of salat.
you can be dynamic in thinking
Yes.
that when you're praying in salah, you may not, in your heart, be focused on the act itself. You're just doing the actions.
Yes.
So yes, it's irrelevant if your heart is not clear while you're praying.
Great.
Yes.
Yes, great.
So we agree.
Great.
Yes.
So, if we are agreed then that the outward forms are less important than the inward actions, then so long as a Christian is truly offering their soul and body to the living God, that they are doing it with the full remembrance of God, the full desire to give themselves to God, their prayer is acceptable.
That's the Christian, from a Christian
Yes,
point of view.
that's
From
the Christian
Islamic
view.
point of view,
You should answer that. You're the
even
Christian.
if you are humble,
Yep,
if you don't carry out the action,
yep.
you are still at fault.
Right, brilliant. So what you're saying
According
is
to Islam.
great,
But
and
according to
yes,
Christianity, you answer.
yeah, I knew that you would say that. That's fine. We're all in agreement what Islam teaches. So what you're saying is that Allah will reject a true, sincere salat if it's done wrongly, with the wrong actions.
Not the wrong actions, the wrong intent. Because I can be a corrupt politician and pray.
But he just said exactly the opposite.
The word has to match the action.
He just said exactly the opposite. Literally just 2 minutes
Can you repeat
ago.
what you said, please?
I said, even if you have good intention, if you're not carrying out the prayers, the five
You're not
daily
doing
The
them at all.
form,
You're
the
not doing
form,
them at all.
Yeah.
the form. You said
Yeah.
the form. You were talking about the actions.
Yeah. As in, no, I was talking about the doing the salah.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
So
if you
that's
put
the
your hands
form,
like this
because
or-
the salah is the form.
No.
You
Let
just
him
said
explain,
salah
let
is
him
the
explain.
form.
Let him explain himself. Let
If
him
you
explain
have your hands here and you have your hands here,
Yeah.
there's no difference.
Okay?
I'm saying if you don't
Do it.
If your
do
head
the
doesn't
salah.
touch the floor,
If he doesn't do it at all,
if you
that's
don't
what
do
he's
the
saying.
salah,
if your head doesn't touch the floor, but you stand with a sincere heart and pray to Allah,
if
will He
you-
accept your salah?
Yes. If
Well,
you
then
okay.
This is supplication.
Listen,
It's not salah.
So it's not
You-
salat?
Listen.
Because it's steps.
So He won't
Listen,
accept your
listen,
salah.
listen.
Steps.
And do you have to do the
Okay,
salah?
Wait.
Yes, I have to do the salah.
So is it a sin not to do it?
Of course it's so. It
So
is.
will Allah punish you for not doing
No,
it?
listen.
So therefore He won't accept your salah if you do it just standing.
Bob, listen.
You know what's the problem?
Listen.
You guys are so eager to win any point, you'll even go back on what you said 2 minutes
If you
earlier.
go to university and you don't go to class, if you don't go to lectures,
Yeah.
how will you pass?
Right. So,
Listen, wait, I just want to make it clear. If you are somebody who doesn't know how to pray,
yeah,
you won't be at fault for not doing the actions correctly.
yeah.
If you are somebody who knows how to pray and you miss out steps on purpose, then you're not doing the salah
Yeah,
On purpose.
on
Yeah.
purpose. If you have the knowledge of how to pray and you don't pray,
yeah.
then you are at sin.
Is the sheer form of salah acceptable?
Well, there's a scholarly disagreement.
So, in other words, to some Muslims no, and to some Muslims yes.
Well, that's
honestly, we don't see
inter-Islam debate. It's not
Yeah, but you're
concerning-
talking to someone who's aware of it, so there's no point trying to
No,
obscure it
it's-
because
it's
I'm already
Christian-
You may
aware.
be aware, but I'm not
Right,
aware
so
of the difference.
so here's the problem, right? In some schools of Islam, you can do salat between the morning and the noon prayer.
You can?
You can do salat between the morning and the noon prayer.
Which
In some salat, we've already talked about
Dhuhr or Fajr or Sabah,
the morning to the noon prayer.
sunrise.
The
thing
morning,
is talking about,
the
you know, when,
sunrise,
directly
the sunrise
at
to
noon,
moon.
You can't pray in some madhab. Directly when the sun is directly ahead.
You're talking to the wrong person here.
Yeah.
I'm talking to you
Yeah,
with what I know.
That's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine, and I appreciate that, and I respect it, and I'm glad that we're all having a calm
We're
conversation.
going into the intricacies of prayer, but the initial point is you said that Christians, just because they sacrifice their body, I'm saying Muslims, as in general, the common people, sacrifice more
No, they don't.
for the sake of God
No,
than
they
Christians
don't.
do.
No, they don't.
Because Christians,
That's such a subjective. That's a completely, utterly subjective analysis. There's no evidence to support what you're doing. What? Sorry? What? Sorry?
Do you have
Sorry?
dietary restrictions?
Yes, of course we do.
Which restrictions?
We should not enter into sin.
Which dietary restrictions?
So you think that is sacrifice, do
What's
you?
it sacrifice?
So brother, let's be clear, right?
What's it sacrifice?
How much do you give in zakat?
Well, I don't
Ask a question.
No, hold on. I'm just going to bust this ass, right?
Yeah.
Because you just,
All right.
your ass just cashed. You literally,
I asked you what
your
dietary-
mouth just cashed a check that your ass can't cash. You have made a completely subjective claim that is utter rubbish.
Which is-
and I'm
it's
going to
observable.
prove
It's
to you
observable.
it's observable. Right, great.
said that
Let me.
Muslims in general
So, do you want to
can
actually listen?
sacrifice more.
Let's say
No,
what he
I'm,
said
no, no,
again.
no.
So
I'm
you're
going.
right.
No, 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 no. I'm not moving on from this point.
We're not moving on.
No,
He's
I'm not going.
repeating.
I'm not going to
Repeating.
move on from this
He's
point.
repeating.
I am going to make guys.
He's repeating.
Guys,
Repeating. Just
you have
repeat.
gone. Guys,
Okay.
I will interrupt you if you interrupt me.
Just repeat
And
it.
when I interrupt you, you'll all be complaining that I'm interrupting you.
Just let him repeat.
No, no, no.
Repeat.
Stop interrupting.
Can I repeat?
You have no. Hold on one second. No, hold on one second. I heard what you said.
What did he say?
I
What
am
did he
going
say?
to
What
say,
did he say?
guys,
Okay,
at this point, this is where I have to raise my voice because notice that the conversation has broken down.
Nothing broke down.
Right, are you going to let me speak then?
you say what
That
you-
means you have to stop interrupting. This is why I have to raise my voice because you can't control yourself.
Go ahead.
Right, thank you. Are you done? We're done. Right. You have made a claim
Yes.
that is completely subject.
claim, repeat
Right.
the claim.
Just let
One
him
second.
talk.
There again, going and interrupting.
Let him talk.
How many seconds was it? 10 seconds before he interrupted again? And this is why I have to raise my voice. Are you done? Are you done? Are you done? Right. You're not going to talk then, are you? Right. Good. Shall we do this timed? Right. So don't interrupt. Now, you made a claim that is completely subjective. And earlier in this conversation, before the camera came, he was trying to criticize Christianity about subjectivity. And he has just made the claim that there is more sacrifice in Islam than in Christianity. There is no objective way that you can prove such a claim. No, not yet. That is a totally subjective claim.
Refute it.
But, ladies and gentlemen, I will refute it with a few examples. Using just the example of the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army numbers 250,000 uniformed officers. And they do more social good work in terms of the productive welfare and charitable actions that they do in this country than 4 million Muslims. And that is before I add on all the other Christians. Muslims give 2.5% of their income to charitable good causes. The average Christian gives between 5 and 10% of their income. I give 5% of my income. That's more than him. That's more than him. That's more than him. 5 and 10%? 5 and 10%? So Christians give more money than Muslims. Oh, notice now, they're upset. When Christians fast during Lent, we actually reduce the calories we eat. When Muslims eat during Ramadan, they increase the calories that they eat.
Hospitalizations go up.
The actual amount of food that Muslims buy during Ramadan goes up, not down. Muslims only fast for 30 days during Ramadan. Christians fast on Wednesdays and Fridays, and they also fast at Advent and Lent for 40 days. So Christians fast for over 100 days. You're objectively making a subjective claim that can't be proven, is totally speculative, and I have plenty of evidence to demonstrate you're wrong. Now, you wanted to speak.
Right. So you're saying that objectively, this gentleman cannot prove that Islam gives more.
Correct.
Okay. So, do you know that Muslims buy food in excess to feed the poor during Ramadan?
No.
Yes, they do.
They feed themselves.
No. Well, we're family.
We
We're family.
feed themselves.
No. I'm a Muslim. I lived in Arabic countries. I've lived in Egypt.
Yep.
I've lived in Jordan. I've lived in Libya.
Yep.
I've lived in Malaysia. I've lived here. Muslims give more during Ramadan. So it's not, listen, we're not comparing quantity, okay? Let's not compare quantity.
Oh, he did.
Okay, he did. I didn't.
Fair enough, that's
Muslims
fine.
care
wrong.
about quality.
How am I wrong?
God,
You just said Salvation Army and you disprove my point,
God's
apparently.
demand to His creations, whether it be any religion,
Yep.
is to give, is to share with others.
Yep.
That's the essence of religion.
Yep.
And this is what we believe. It's not about the quantity, okay? Because cultural differences in economies, the strength of economy, control how much people can give. Like people in Somalia, Muslims in Somalia or Christians in Somalia cannot give the same as Christians here.
But it is
But
about
it's
quantity, isn't it?
It's not about quantity.
So
We have
how
good
much does your
economies.
zakat have to be?
I don't know. I told you, I'm not a scholar from the beginning.
2.5%.
2.5%.
Is that right?
What's the impetus to give charity in Christianity?
Great question. Great question.
No, I didn't
Well,
finish.
Let him finish his point and then I'll answer that.
So it's what I'm trying to say is that quantity is not the measure. It can be that you can compare them. This is more. This is less. Okay, you can, but quality is the essence. The sense of sharing is the goal of sharing in a religious way. This is why there is zakah. This is why there is sadaqah. This is why these things are there. So this is what I'm trying to say.
Can I reply
and
to
also
that?
in Eid, the Adha Eid, when we sacrifice, if you're saying sacrifice, we're not just giving our bodies. We're giving animals to feed the poor. We're sacrificing
Bob would
more.
say that's not
Okay,
sacrifice.
so allow me to reply to that. Allow me to reply to that.
I didn't finish.
Okay, go on.
So this Eid, when
But
we do that,
I mean, hold on.
when we
You're
do that,
protesting that I
my
should let you
family-
finish, but you've been interrupting
No,
me
I didn't interrupt you.
continuously.
Wasn't
I'm
that
just
the
pointing
only
out. I'm just pointing
When you were
out.
refuting
Did
me,
I
I was
not
quiet.
say he would complain if I interrupted him?
Excuse me.
Just saying.
What are you trying to say?
I'm trying to say, bro, that when you were interrupting me, you thought it was
I
fine.
honestly wasn't. I told you to repeat what he said. That's
Right.
all.
No, you interrupted me continuously.
If
the
I
camera was
interrupted you, I apologize.
Accepted.
Okay.
Continue.
So what I'm trying to say is that
I heard what you said.
when there is Eid Adha, we have to sacrifice the sheep. We give 5 more sheep to the poor people.
Okay.
This is just my family.
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
So if it's quantity, if it's based on quantity, it's based on the person's ability to give.
Are you done?
That's all.
Can I reply to
This
that?
is my point.
So
Sorry.
before I answer your question, let me just reply to him. Because the brother says that it's not about quantity. But actually in Islam, a particular amount is expected in zakat. 2.5%. 2.5%. So it is about quantity. You can't drop below the minimum. You can't drop below the minimum. So it is about quantity. Now notice he's interrupting. It's amazing, isn't it? It is absolutely amazing that when I interrupt them, they demand that I listen. But when I speak, they interrupt continuously. It must be Muhammad has failed to teach you manners. Now, let's go on. He's interrupting again. There we go. So in terms of quantity, actually in Islam, it is about quantity, the minimum. Now, there you go. He's interrupting. Now, in Christianity, Christ tells a story. He was there at the temple. It's not a story actually. He's using a visible example. He was there at the temple, and all the Pharisees and the leaders of the community were making a show and dance. A show and dance about giving their charitable alms. And then he saw an old widow put in a penny. And he said to his apostles, note the widow, note the old lady, because out of her poverty she has given all that she had, whereas the rich have only given out of their wealth. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the reason, to answer your question, the reason why Christians give so much more than Muslims is because we are offering our souls and bodies as a living sacrifice. There's a whole school of thought in Christianity. You can see it in a book called Rich Christians in an Age of Hunger. And it says that those who are rich enough should live on 10% and give away 90%. We Christians are encouraged to give all that we can.
Is it in the scripture?
That we give all that we can.
All you can.
All the Christians are called. I'll do a talk soon about the seduction of riches, and you'll see what Jesus said about it. Because Christianity teaches that you only need a modest life. You don't need a luxurious life.
We agree.
Well, someone needs to tell your caliphs and your princes across the Middle East.
Someone needs to tell Queen Elizabeth.
I agree.
It's culture. Yeah, it's culture.
Yeah. So we're encouraged to give all that we can and live a modest life. That is the Christian way.
Same thing, the Prophet lived in a modest style. But just going back to your quantity, and then you can go ahead. Okay, if you want to reply, you can.
Yeah.
Although I don't find it necessary, but it's your choice. What I'm saying is that when I said that quantity doesn't matter, okay, I didn't mean that the 2.5% is not necessary.
Yeah.
But if giving more or less is necessary, if it's 2.5% out of 100,000, it's whatever it is, that quantity. If it's out of a million, it's whatever it is, that quantity.
Don't you think that's unjust?
It's not unjust. It's the same
It's
thing.
not
the same
unjust for
principle.
someone who has
I didn't
100
finish.
million.
I didn't finish.
Oh wait, you want me to? But you were interrupting me.
I didn't
I'm
finish.
just showing. I'm just
Okay,
showing
okay,
how
thank you for
you have a
showing me
double
my mistake.
standard.
Thank you for showing me my mistake. I respect that. Okay. What I'm saying is that when you give The act itself is what counts.
Yes.
If it's 2.5% in the Quran, it says you have to give 2.5%.
Can it be less?
Then no, it cannot be less.
That's the problem.
But no, what I'm saying
Well,
is
for
not
a
the
Christian,
problem.
it can be less.
How
Yes.
much is 2.5%
For a
of
Christian, it can
10,000?
be, for a Christian, it can be 1 penny, and that's the charity done for the
And if they're dirt poor, that's totally fine. How can a poor person give
even a
2.5%?
millionaire, even a millionaire.
How can a poor person give
Well, they
2.5%?
don't have to give 2.5. They're the poor. They get the money.
So I want to be clear because this is an interesting point. He's made an interesting point. You're saying that in Islam,
The poor don't have
the
to give
poor
zakat.
Muslims
They don't give
don't
zakat.
only have to keep 4 pillars, not 5.
They don't do Hajj either. If they don't have the money to do Hajj, they don't do Hajj.
Great. Okay. So Islam can be reduced to 3 pillars.
No, it's well, depending on the circumstances that you're in.
Yep.
If you are physically unable to do Hajj, then it's not obligatory. on you.
Right. So we can rightly say that Islam can be reduced to just 3 obligatory pillars.
No.
So a poor man
person,
must
if you're
go on
if you're a
Hajj.
poor person, No, if you're a poor person, then yes. But if you can,
There are exceptions.
Right, so that's my point, bro. What you're really saying, if you're saying that there are exceptions to 2 of the pillars, remember these are your words, I didn't put them there, then that means that Islam can be reduced to 3 obligatory
I'll
pillars.
tell you why. I'll tell you why it cannot
Gotta
be.
be unjust.
I'll tell you why it cannot
Would
be.
it be
Okay,
just?
I'll tell you why it
Okay.
cannot be. If you don't have the financial ability to do something,
Yes.
and then God tells you no, you have to do it. That means you either have to steal and you
Yep.
commit a sin, so you can actually go do it.
So Islam can be reduced to 3 pillars.
No, it cannot. Because if it's reduced to 3 pillars, that means the people with financial ability to do it, they will choose not to do it.
So first,
So it's logical.
So I mean,
cannot-
Logic.
if you-
okay.
Come on, man.
No. I agree with the justice of your argument. To be clear, I want to be clear. I agree with the justice of your argument. Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we're agreeing.
But here's my
Then you're agreeing with the Islamic thing, but that's
the implication of what you're saying is that Islam can actually be reduced to just 3 obligatory
This is
pillars.
where we disagree again. We're going back into
So
the same circle.
you can't have it both ways. Either the poor. No, hold on one second. Now notice again. You're interrupting me when I'm speaking. You're interrupting me when I'm speaking, but when I interrupt you, you ask that I listen. So, the reality is, if you're saying that the poor don't have to do Hajj, and the poor don't have to give 2.5% of their income, then that means for the poor
Yes.
that Islam is reduced to 3 pillars, not 5.
In that current state that
Right.
you're in, yes.
So, the next question.
That's the thing. We're going into a circle.
disagree, but-
There are
They do disagree.
extenuating circumstances. Like if you are in university,
Yeah.
and you have had an accident or an emergency.
Can there be extenuating circumstances to not praying?
No, they're not. Unless you are
If you
when
are debilitated.
If you are debilitated, you don't have to carry the actual physical act, but you
Yeah.
can pray while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
I did it when I broke my leg.
Yeah.
I couldn't pray.
Yep.
So I had to pray while sitting down.
So you can do salat
Yes.
without doing the actions.
Wait, for a woman,
Extenuating circumstances.
Without doing the actions. But you can do it.
When you are physically able.
You can do it.
When you are physically
Yeah,
able.
a woman who's menstruating, she doesn't pray.
you're comparing apples and
and
oranges.
so here's
Apples and oranges.
No, you're right. I am comparing apples and oranges because the Christian faith makes so much more sense when I listen to you guys. And let me explain why. Now please know, you will want me to listen to you, so now listen to me. Because the Christian faith says that where the Spirit is, there is freedom. That means that we Christians must worship God in spirit and in truth. Whether you're on your period or not does not matter. Whether you're rich or you're poor does not matter. Something that is truly universal has to be universal to all people at all times in all places. The Christian faith is universal. It applies to all people, all times, in all places. You're saying that Islam applies to some people some of the time in some circumstances but not others. That's what you're saying. Now, that's a really big difference between our 2 religions. Because in our faith, we give our whole life and body to God in complete sacrifice. And that means that God doesn't look whether you're menstruating and say your prayers are not acceptable to me. He doesn't say to you, because you haven't done the right body motions, your prayers are not acceptable to me. If anything, he says to you, be warned that you don't concentrate on the outward, but you look on the inward. You make sure that the inner spirituality is right. And this is the great waking difference, the chasm between your religion and mine. Your religion reduces Allah to a fetishist. Someone who obsesses about the form and the ritual. That is a fetishist. That is the definition of a fetishist. Our God is not a fetishist. He wants a contrite and humble heart. That's what he wants. Yeah, go on.
Meditation of my heart.
One thing you've said right now is that Christians have to give 5 to 10%. Have to.
No. No, I didn't say that.
Okay, can you correct me? What did you say exactly about the money that you have to give?
Yeah.
How much?
So let me. Yeah, sister. We got. So what I said was, and this is what I mean about listening, interrupting less and listening more. What I said is that on average, studies show that Christians give between 5 and 10% of their income.
Why would they do
Now, 1 second. It says in Scripture that God loves a cheerful giver, and that we should give freely. We received freely, and we should give freely. There is no obligation in the Christian faith
you
to
can give
give.
zero.
You listen. Interrupting again. If you'd listen, you'd learn more. There is no obligation in Christianity to give. Christians give freely and cheerfully and sacrificially because our example is Jesus. And that is why we give 5 and 10%. Not because we're obliged to, but because we want to. Because the teaching of Jesus has changed our hearts. We're doing it freely. There's no sin in giving less.
Alright, when I chose to become a Muslim,
Yeah.
okay, I was born a Muslim, but when I got to 19 years old, I chose to be a Muslim. Truly, this is like from a personal experience, okay?
Yeah.
I chose to be a Muslim. So I freely chose to follow Islam. And when I followed it, I started following the teachings which say give. So I am encouraged by God, by Allah, to give. So where's the difference here? I freely chose to follow.
Right,
So
1 second.
where's the difference?
Here's the difference.
Tell me.
Zakat is not charity. Zakat is a tax. It's a redistributive tax. It isn't charity.
Right?
So you can't count that as charity.
Okay, Muslims give
Who should it be
Yeah.
given to? Who should it be given to? The zakat, according to
It's
Islam.
given to poor Muslims first.
So how is that not charity?
It's
And you said it yourself.
No,
I like
no, no.
This guy is honest
No.
here. He was honest. I respect that because he said Muslims first. This means they can give to others, non-Muslims as well. I
Yeah,
respect that.
yeah, but unfortunately they don't do that in Pakistan, where during the floods in Pakistan, Christians were sent away by Muslim charitable organizations. That's what happened in Pakistan. In the floods that happened years back. It's a failure of Islamic teaching. When Christians give charity, they give liberally to everybody. Muslim, Christian,
But there's no
Jew.
obligation.
There is no obligation.
People can give
And that
zero.
is the beauty of the Christian
People
faith.
can give zero.
That is no. Hold on 1 second. So
the beauty of
1
the-
second.
Can they give zero?
Let's give. Let's deal with this. And please note how you interrupted again. So firstly, zakat is not charity. It is a redistributive tax. That's not charity. That's a tax. Britain has redistributive taxes, and we have higher redistributive taxes than you do. We pay tax upwards of 20%, so even a secular country like Britain has better redistributive taxes than Islam teaches. Now, secondly, you keep going on, there's no obligation to give, like that's some kind of criticism of my faith. But the point of the matter is, now notice you're interrupting, but you'll complain because I'm going to interrupt you now and just teach you again. I'm going to teach you again the lesson about manners.
You've been speaking the most.
So they're interrupting again. So that is the beauty of my faith. Imagine this, a religion that says you have no obligation to give, but inspires people to give anyway. And it doesn't just inspire people to give, it inspires people to give more than Islam obliges them at the minimum. That is the beauty of the Christian faith, that it inspires people to sacrifice. Now you said about you can give zero. Absolutely, a poor person does not need to give financially.
What about you?
But a poor person, I've already told you, I give 5%.
No, but can you give zero?
If I chose to, but as a Christian,
All right,
wait,
good,
1 second, because here's the thing, right? Because now you've asked a supplementary question, I've got to now talk a little bit more to answer that supplementary
was the
question.
initial question.
So that means you now need to listen to the answer. So you're right, I can give less, it isn't a sin. But does that mean that I should not give in other ways? No, I can give of my time. I can give of other kinds of resources, like my clothes to charity shops, or my food to someone who doesn't have food. Now, also, because of the concept of Christian discipleship, would my father of confession, my discipler, turn round to me and say, you've got a job, you're earning a decent wage, would he turn around to me and say, I don't think you should be giving anything financially? He wouldn't do that. He would encourage me to give.
and you
Because
could say
it's
no.
an ethos within the Christian faith to give freely and cheerfully because we received freely. So I know you think you're making a criticism of Christianity, but you're really not.
Hold on. So you said that because God in Christianity didn't force or command the Christians to pay the equivalent of zakat, it's more inspirational, right?
Blatantly.
So in Islam, God assured that the followers of the religion, the proper followers of religion who apply it, do that.
Yep.
So it creates a fairer financial support for the poor. But when it's not non-obligatory, a million people can do it. 60 million, 70 million don't have to, and they don't feel obliged to do so.
Okay.
But in Islam, they give.
Yep.
They have to give
Yep.
to be a proper follower of Islam.
Yep.
They have to do so.
Yep.
So God here as being an all-wise, because in all religions we believe that God is all-wise.
Okay.
Whether it's a Christian,
Yep.
God or whatever.
So let
It's
me
not-
reply to this. Yeah, go on. Oh, wait. Sorry, are you complaining that I'm
understand.
interrupting?
I understand.
Have you learned yet the double standard you keep appealing to?
Again and again.
I
Yeah,
respect
again
what you
and
said.
again.
I respect
You're
the idea.
complaining that I'm interrupting you,
respect the idea.
but then you want me to just be quiet when you're talking.
Be the better person.
Yes.
Be the better person.
Be the better person. Go
All
on.
right. So in Islam, God made sure that the financial support to the poor is obligatory.
Uh-huh.
So, but in Christianity it isn't. So many people may choose not to. Some people may choose to. And now you're gonna go back to your old point by saying that Christians give more 5-10%. But how many people do that? How many people do that?
Many Christians do
Even
that.
Muslims, I can say that we do that.
And how many
We
Muslims
we
don't do their
we
zakat?
We do it in command.
How many Muslims don't do their zakat?
How many? How many? How many?
Well, we'll come on to that. We'll
I
come on
didn't
to
finish.
that.
This is a rhetorical
Yeah.
question. Okay. So
Many.
people give
And many don't.
by obligation, and many do it just out of charity.
It's not. If
That's
it's an
the
obligation,
beauty of
it's not a
Islam.
charity.
It gives you both sides, but yours is obligatory. Yeah, some people do it, some people don't. It doesn't matter. But in Islam, we have to guarantee respectable life to our community brothers and sisters. This is the beauty.
Okay,
of
so
Islam.
now let me reply to that. Because the brother has tried to make this argument that, Islam creates this beautifully just society. Well, let's look at the Islamic world and let's look at the world that's been influenced by Christianity. Which one has demonstrably taken care of its poor? The Islamic world hasn't. Go across the Middle East. Go to Pakistan. Go to Afghanistan. The zakat system has failed completely to address the needs of the poor. Now, we can assume that that's one of two reasons. Either lots of Muslims aren't giving their zakat, so it's not helping the poor, or lots of Muslims are giving their zakat and it's not enough to help the poor. So either way, Islam has failed. By contrast, in the 1940s, it was the Christian church that advocated for the establishment of the welfare state. That lifted millions of people out of poverty. It has been Christians that have advocated for the Jubilee cancellation of debt for the Third World. That was a Christian enterprise. That has eased the burden on the poorest in society. The world that has been influenced by Christianity is the one that has lifted the most people out of poverty. Islam has dominated Saudi Arabia for 1400 years, and there are still people in Saudi Arabia who are dirt poor. In England, where Christianity has dominated for 1,000 years, we have relative poverty, not objective poverty like in a third world country. We have relative poverty, i.e. there are people that are on the breadline who are struggling, but our infrastructure and our resources provides a substantial safety net that doesn't exist in Islam. Now, please note, they've replaced one kind of rudeness for another. They've not even been listening to what I've been saying. They've been listening to one another. They demand manners, but they show no
Listen to
manners.
everything. Okay, I just want to finish with this. You said that Christianity inspires to give charity and Islam somehow doesn't.
I didn't say that.
But you said
I didn't say that.
You're using a reductionist argument.
I didn't say that. What I actually said.
Okay, so now you're interrupting me.
Oh, look,
at
he's
me.
he's upset about that.
Okay, so I'm just doing what you do.
Who did it first, bro?
Okay, listen. Just
It's
let me-
amazing,
let me
isn't
finish
it?
and
Oh, he wants people to listen to him finish.
Okay.
Do you see that double standard?
You are trying to use a reductionist
The
argument.
thing is, bro,
but, okay, so it does the same
Zakat
thing.
isn't a charity. Do you see how he's upset by this?
Okay.
He was
Anyway,
doing it
anyway.
a minute ago and it's
Anyway,
fine, but now
anyway.
I'm talking to you and not listening to him.
Anyway.
They demand that I listen.
Anyway.
Zakat is not a charity, it's a tax. And he hasn't cottoned on to that. I never said Muslims don't give to charity. What I said was that Zakat isn't a charity. They don't listen to what you say.
Okay, we're done. We're 1 for 1 now. We're done. We're done.
Oh, wait, were you upset by that?
We're one for
But
one
it was
now.
okay when
We're-
you did it.
We're 1
Go
for
on.
1 now.
Go
Okay.
on.
You try. Okay, I'm just gonna say one and I'm gonna go. It's been nice talking to you, Bob.
It's been nice talking to you as well.
Likewise. I just want to say that you've said that you've tried to use a reductionist argument by saying Christianity inspires to give freely, but Islam places a 2.5% minimum. But in fact, when you look at the hadiths, it says the 3 things that will go with you in the grave is the sadaqah that you give, which is the optional charity. So in that sense, people are inspired to give more because it will go on with them. Secondly, you mentioned that Christians have been helping the poor for the last 2,000 years. Or
We have.
If you look at the Middle Ages and you look at the Islamic Golden Era, you'll see the vast differences in the society.
Because you stole and looted others' wealth.
Okay, and Christianity never did that in the empires, guys. Colonialism did not happen.
Is an enlightened, modernist, secular movement.
Okay, so you use Afghanistan, Pakistan, all of these countries, but Afghanistan has been littered and looted for the last 20 years, and he's used Afghanistan to say, oh, look how the poor are in Afghanistan. While
We educated women, the Taliban never did.
While completely reducing any context.
Are you happy the Taliban won?
Well, it's separate. Red herring.
Is it?
Yeah, it's red herring.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, wait. You're protesting now.
So
you can't protest.
So
bro.
on the one hand, you have the Middle Ages where the peasants were treated like dirt poor, and now he's trying to use that as an example to say, oh, look how far Christianity has come.
And we abolished slavery while the Muslims were
Okay,
practicing it.
Yeah, and you
Still.
started the slavery.
It was 1984.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
started the slavery.
No, we
You abused-
didn't.
you abused
Slavery
the-
predated Christianity.
Yeah, show me racial.
The pharaohs practiced slavery. It's in your Quran, bro.
Finish your point.
Okay, anyway, so I just want to say that Christianity, they don't set a minimum so people can give 0 and they can live guilt-free.
If they're poor.
Well, even if they're rich, because there's no compulsion in Christianity. In Islam, there's a compulsion.
Giving freely, receiving freely,
There's
giving
no
cheerfully.
compulsion. You said yourself there's no compulsion.
You're right, there's no
Anyway,
religious compulsion.
Thank you, Bob.
Look, bro, that was a really, it was really, do you want to hold that?
Next time I'm done, I want to talk to you about.
Look, this was a really lovely conversation, and despite the sort of jostling around manners, right? That's just a bit of fun for me. But because it was such a nice conversation, I would like to give you a gift, a proper gift.
I appreciated your answer about why Christians ask for repentance, but I still have to get back to you about that, where you said it's a form of therapy for the brain.
It's a changing of the mind. Yeah, that's what repentance is.
Cognitive behavioral therapy. That's what
We call
essentially
the idea of it's this idea of this perpetual reprogramming of the mind.
Yeah, behavioral therapy.
Yeah,
Essentially.
that is what repentance is.
Yeah.
It's about the changing of the mind.
Next time we'll have a discussion on how
I mean, I'm happy to have it now if you want.
a bit worn out.
All right, I want to give you a gift. Look, I don't give out little silly pamphlets that are bought for 12 pence and are written by 12-year-olds. Like, have the good grace and charity to give people proper books as a gift. Look at that, man. It is about grace, which is what we've been talking about. We Christians believe that we've received grace freely, and we want to give grace freely. This is what we're talking about. Grace is a gift from God, and we want to, and that is why we give. This is why. So this is for
I
you.
appreciate it. Nice speaking to you.
Nice speaking to you as well. Can I give you a gift as well? It was nice talking to you. Let me give you a gift. Let me give you a gift. Yeah, because you know, we Christians give.
You can choose to reply or not. Okay.
Go on.
The gentleman talked about yourself saying that for the past 2,000 years, Christianity has been giving the world.
Yes.
And the gentleman briefly talked about colonialism.
Yep.
How do you think it affected those colonized countries, and how it affected their economies and the power of their currency, which either hinders or gives them the ability to give more?
Okay, so
That's a really good question.
firstly, let me give you a gift. So that's for our previous conversation, which was very nice. I'll give you one as well. But let me just reply to this. The first thing that we got to recognise is that the colonial period is connected to the Enlightenment, not Christianity. By the time that the colonial period kicked off, what you had, with the exception of the Spanish and Portuguese, I'll give you that. But with the exception of the Spanish and the Portuguese, you'd already had the sort of replacement of Christianity with the Enlightenment in Western Europe. Now, one second, let me finish. But I think it's cheap for Muslims to talk about colonialism. Because what about Islamic colonialism? And what about Arabization? Egypt had a language before Islam came along. It was Coptic. Now they speak Arabic. Lots of Muslims in Egypt don't even know that they're African, they're Nubians. They think that they're Arab. In Pakistan, they have their own language, but you've got Arabization. In Afghanistan, Arabization. Islam brought the slave trade wherever it went. Muslims can't lecture Europeans about colonialism because Islam is all about colonialism and has been for 1400 years.
Your opinion? This is not true.
It's also a historical fact.
No, it's what you say.
It's a historical. So sorry,
I-
was Syria Christian or Muslim when the Muslims
I'm not a
invaded?
historian. I'm telling you.
Well, I am.
I'm talking to you.
I am a historian, so let me
Speak to a
tell you.
historian. Speak to a
So let me. No,
Just
you're
finish my
speaking
idea.
to a historian.
Correct me.
I am correcting you. Syria was Christian when Muslims invaded. Was Egypt Christian?
He said.
Was no, it wasn't. No, it was animist. It was animist. You don't know your Egypt. So Muslims can't lecture about colonialism because Islam has practiced colonialism from the time of Muhammad.
The gentleman said that he's going to give me that the Spanish and the Portuguese era was.
I accept that.
And then what did you say?
Yep.
You said it was replaced by.
The Enlightenment period is in the Enlightenment period. Yeah. You don't know the terms you're using, bro.
After the Islamic period of the
So you're
Prophet
saying
ended-
Muslims never invaded other people's lands?
Let me finish and you're gonna get the idea.
Never.
Let me get the idea. After the Prophet's time,
You don't know history, sir. You don't know history. Go
after
on.
the Prophet's time, okay, after the Prophet died, alayhi salatu wasalam, any person that comes after that is applying their own personal agenda.
Does that include the rightly guided caliphs?
They're applying their own understanding of the religion.
Does
So
that
they're not
include
following
the rightly
Prophet
guided
100%.
caliphs?
This is what I'm saying.
Does that include the rightly guided caliphs?
No.
Right. So they invaded other people's lands. The Byzantine Empire, the Persian
Why
Empire.
is that wrong, by the way? I have a question.
There we go.
Why is that wrong?
Is colonialism wrong?
Colonialism?
Yes.
In the age of empire, no.
So you've got no criticism of the colonial period.
No.
You got that in record.
Wait.
Got
I
that
have
in
a
record.
criticism. Wait, hold on. Before you